April Fool. I think it was a bit unfair on poor Jackson to throw him into the mix with it because everyone believes everything you say about him at the moment.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Mark's just, if you haven't seen it, pulling me up on the April Fool's joke this morning, which got a few people. Not as good. I don't know if you remember the one. Yeah, it was an April Fool, unfortunately. We haven't signed Ben Barber. But I don't know if you remember the one from last year, which was around about... it was so happened to be the timing of Sean Edwards not coming, and then I put something on about Ian Millwood coming back, and that got so many people. So I thought I'd go easy this year, and thought Jackson Hastings. Nobody's gonna buy into the fact that Jackson Hastings wants to leave. I thought it was quite good saying that he wanted to go to Sale because that's where Salford play. There's kind of a good...
Yeah, that was funny.
There's a kind of decent tie up there.
I think if we haven't had like rumours all the time about where he's going, and if he hadn't had that interview last week where he kind of fell into saying the aspirational part that we all knew about rather than the professional part that he also has to add into the thing that everyone bloody knows anyway, so why are we freaking out about it? And all the other rumours, then I think it would have been okay, but I feel sorry for the whole lad that he just gets abused for the fact that he wants to go home to play in the best competition.
Matthew is logging in at this moment in time, the Wigan runner. I'm talking, and this isn't my show, this is April Fool's Day, so the one person that should be in charge on April Fool's Day. Over to you, Matt McCauley.
I don't know what you're trying to say there, to be honest, but I don't think I like it. You've had my first official honk of the night.
Excellent.
Okay, the rules. As if we need reminding of the rules. It is the triple decker. So we've got 3 separate arguments. Everybody gets 5 minutes to say their piece. Then after everyone's gone, it's like an open 5 minutes for you to tear into each other. Hiya, Matthew.
Hey, pie, all right?
Have you got your pie this time?
No pie.
Coronavirus, I know, yeah. So then we have an open 5 minutes for you all to argue, and then I'll give you a 30-second shot clock summary, and then we'll decide who the winner is using some bizarre system. So the question I put was, what do we miss most about not going to the rugby at the moment? Mark, I think your answer was something along the lines of the camaraderie, the community. Matthew, you said that the music as the players come out, and Sean said it's the urinals. So you've each got 5 minutes. You're a strange person. You've got 5 minutes. He's gone.
He's gone.
Where's he gone?
He's had enough. He's had enough.
The laptop's going to run out of power. Someone's connecting the laptop.
It looks like he's crawled behind Mark's shelving.
That would be amazing if he just
He's
popped
gone
up.
to pick out his favourite shirt off the rack.
That's Matthew's way of saying, I'm not going to go first.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I'm really sorry, but I can't go first.
Who wants to go first? Mark,
I'll go first. I think mine's the most just normal, innit?
Yeah. So if you want to go first, you've got 5 minutes, starting as soon as I can find a timer. I can't. I'll time it roughly.
Do you want me to press the glockenspiel for you?
It doesn't matter. I won't take 5 minutes.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. So, over to you then, Matthew. Let me put me bus driver's hat on first. The bus is about to leave the depot. First speaker, Mark Illingworth. What do we miss most about not going to the rugby?
Well, it's the whole thing of the people, beyond the obvious watching the game and getting our frustrations out and all that sort of stuff. But match days for me start around about an hour and a half before kick-off. I'll get a phone call from my uncle to tell me it's set off, and then I'll have to walk to a pre-arranged pick-up point, otherwise he'll moan at me. And then we'll drive to the ground, so we have a nice catch-up with my uncle, which is always nice. That's a big part. It's a big part of the game day for me. Catch up with my uncle, my cousins, that sort of stuff. Get to the ground, and you sort of start to see the same sort of people, whether you pop into the fan village or you go into the stadium straight away. You start to see the same sorts of people, don't you? A few people who watch the show, a few people who listen to us, or just a few people we've known as Wigan fans over the years. So it's always nice to kind of get people's views on things. As, I don't know, we've had gossip during the week, or the team news is starting to filter out. Oh, what's up with Sean O'Loughlin this week? What's his injury? Why is he not playing? Oh, should Bevan French play at stand-up? No, he's playing at fullback. Shut up, Phil. You know, that sort of stuff. And then you get into the ground, get into your seat. You know, we've got the old timers over my left shoulder who all sit together, who I've done for years. You know, the type who still mark up on the little sheet the try scorers and that sort of stuff for their own record. And I've sat in front of them for 15 years, and the last people it's socially acceptable to say Happy New Year to, because obviously first home game of the season, you have to say Happy New Year to everyone sat around you, even though you haven't said it to anyone for a month already at that point. And then over my right shoulder, I've got Matt, who normally at the start of the season talks to me about the New England Patriots winning a Super Bowl, so I can't wait for the next 5 years or so when they're not going to have a shout with no quarterback. So, you know, catching up on the off-season stuff as well at the start of the season, and throughout the year, keeping tabs on how everyone's going. Did you go to this away game? Did you go to that? I even miss the guy who sits 2 rows in front who disagrees with absolutely everything I say, no matter how right I am. The guy who sits to my right, who his main aim of going to the game is to shout for us to take a 2 every time we have a potentially kickable penalty. Now, and my aim is to disagree with him every single time, because I want to see tries, I want to be entertained. And you know, all of that side of it for me is really special. It's more seeing one of my best friend Cass and his kids, they come to the game, sit next to us. It's all that side of the stuff that I miss the most, because I can still watch some old games, can't we? We can still enjoy all these Good Friday wins at Saints over the last decade and all those sort of things that they've been putting on the Wigan TV. Not to be confused with us. We can't help with your subscription troubles, kids.
But if you do want to pay us, that's fine.
But yeah, that's what I miss most. I mean, it's, you know, going to a away game and wondering at what stage of the day I'm going to run into Amanda Rankin somewhere, who's on the fan engagement board with me and Sean. You know, things like that. It's just the extra bits around meeting people, seeing people, chatting about the sport we all love. And it's a bit boring, but in these socially isolated times, socially distancing times, self-isolating times, it's speaking to people about the game that I miss the most.
You just need a hug.
Maybe. I'll hug myself in my Wigan hoodie. There we go.
Oh. Thank you very much. That was very nearly 5 minutes.
And it should appeal to you, Matt, because obviously you have that experience with your dad, not, you know, trying to swear.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, pull on the heartstrings.
Just stop trying to appeal to my better nature.
With that beard,
okay.
I'm not sure there is one anymore. That crafty beard coming on.
That was Mark's argument that he goes dogging. What was that first bit about? You described going dogging perfectly. You meet up with your uncle. You head off in the car somewhere. See people you know.
I mean, we don't go dogging in the DW car park, but obviously some of the lesser glorious grounds with more discreet places to park your car nearby.
See David Bailey, where he was part the other week.
Yeah, we've cracked it.
That's what he was doing.
Okay, all right, then we'll move on then. Matthew, are you ready to tell us all about why you think the music as the teams come out is what we miss most?
Not really. I was hoping I'd go last. I'm used to trying to pick up on how everyone else does the game first, but seeing as Sean's had in his head, I don't think I've got much choice.
I've been giving you rhinos, Matthew.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to make a 5-minute argument about toilets.
Yeah, I reckon you should go first then.
Yeah, I think you should go first, actually. I'm going to sit here and I'll.
I mean, the strength of both of your arguments is compelling at this stage.
I thought, to be honest with you, I thought Matthew was going to pick.
Right.
Go on.
You've been punked. You're going.
Who?
Who's going? Is it me?
Matthew, it's your. You go. Go now. Go.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 5 minutes, right. So basically, in my opinion, what I'm missing the most, what's going to be best, is when we're all at the stadium next, whenever the Super League season continues, and we all get to go sit there, all the razzmatazz excitement beforehand, but then we're all sat down, doesn't matter who we're playing, who we're against, and then suddenly the excitement builds. Tell me, if it gets any better than when you hear this music come on?
What's that instrument you're about to play?
It's the pen
Pen.
The
recorder.
pen. Okay.
Can you hear it?
No,
No,
Oh, you're joking.
You'll have to
you have
mime
to
it.
sing it
Yeah,
for
sing
us.
it.
Can you not hear the music?
No, you're on the piano.
I've got it on YouTube on my laptop.
Sing it.
do you want one of the rest of us to get it up?
I think he's just stalling.
Paradise. Can you hear it?
Nope.
Oh, surely you can hear that.
Who's that over in the seat?
Can you not hear that?
That over there.
I mean, maybe we'd have a chance if you can speak it loud.
Was that better?
Hokey.
It somewhat resembled something I've heard before.
I don't know if you're kidding me. Can you hear that music or not?
No, and what you're doing is you're using 3 minutes of stalling because pretending that you're pressing play.
Oh no, you could. I can't believe you couldn't hear that. Right. So yeah,
Oh.
with Conquest of Paradise, when we're all sat down, when the players are entering and going out to the tunnel, how good is that? So basically, I think that's what I'm missing the most. And then sitting down, chatting, you're making your prediction beforehand, and then whatever the result is, we're all going to be winners when we get to hear that music, when we're all coming back. And also, I miss when you hear specifically a woman in the crowd saying, "Get him on side! Get him on side!" And then I can't repeat the word after that. But that as well.
This is straying so much into marks.
What you've done there, Matthew, is you've chosen a topic to talk about, and you've spoken about it for about 5 seconds, stalled for 1 minute, and spent the rest of your time using Mark's argument.
And they don't even use that song anymore.
I can hear it then. Was someone else playing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You managing to play it and I can't.
They used to always play it, but like they've had all sorts of different songs over the past few years. Like they've had Insomnia by Faithless a couple of years ago, didn't they?
That was just a big misunderstanding. Paradise.
I always enjoy that music when it's a Sky game because it's
Yeah.
sort of they have to like find the join in it where they have to replay the bit because they're not ready to do the build up yet to the faster bit because adverts are still on, guys. Restart the tune.
Don't get him started about if a game's on telly. That changes everything.
That's what matters.
I feel like we're derailing the game here, Matt. Sorry.
I can't believe you couldn't hear that music.
I mean that is what spoilt your argument. I've got to say.
Yeah.
I feel like Sean's in the race here now.
I really am.
Okay. Sean, over to you.
Don't
with
go
your rival.
showing us videos on your laptop, Matthew.
Conquest of Paradise. That's what it was. Ugh, never mind. Go on, Sean.
Can I just clarify the rules, Matt?
Yeah.
When do we tear up everybody else's arguments apart?
After you've done your 5 minutes,
So once I've destroyed my own argument, then everybody else joins in.
and everyone else gets to destroy it too. Yeah.
Right, okay. You want me to start?
Yeah. Carry on.
Right, okay. So when we were discussing this, and Matthew said that he wanted, Matt said that he wanted to get in the driver's seat of the triple decker once again. This was discussed as a topic, and somehow within about 20 seconds, I ended up with urinals as being the one thing that I should discuss about. And I've got to be fair, I didn't argue against it. I thought I'll go with urinals. and I'll try and make it a case for it. So I've thought about it for about 30 seconds, and I thought there is an argument here, because there's first of all, there's lots more people that are going to be washing their hands in the urinals post-coronavirus. There's going to be queues in there like you've never seen before, which means that there's more chance and more time for topic of conversation to develop, as well as the queues. But don't worry about that. The urinals themselves, they're a unique place where it gives people about 20 seconds to 90 seconds, depending on the age of the person, in which they want to discuss that very thing that's stuck in their mind from whatever rugby they've just seen. They want to discuss it at that point in the urinals. Is it a try? Is it something that the referee's done? Is it a try that they miss? That happens in the urinals. Is there a more gutting feeling than being in urinals and hearing the whole crowd cheer, and then you've got to hurry your wee up, not make any mistakes, because that could, you could get found out later on, couldn't you? If you've got a little wet mark as you go back to your seat, you don't want that on your jeans. You go back up. Yeah, little, and you go back up to your seat. Have we scored? Have we conceded? And it all goes about the sound of the cheer, doesn't it? If the cheers are decent, that was definitely our fans. But was it kind of a disgruntled cheer? Was it a sending off? Was it a sin bin? You don't know, and that only happens when you're in the urinals. See where I'm going with this? And that's the kind of thing that you can't really buy, because you don't. When you buy a ticket to go into rugby, that's an added element to the game that you can't predict, because it's all about your water movements, and that's just nature taking toll. And when you get into that urinals, it's a bit of jeopardy because you haven't got a clue what's going on the pitch. So yeah, there's that. What else have we got about the urinals? We've got the new lights. Obviously, everybody knows about them doing out the DW Stadium during the coronavirus sort of outbreak. So they put new lights in like this. So they'll be on for the urinals, just to jazz them up a little bit. So when you go in there, it's just to encourage the conversation, to get more people talking, and just dancing in the urinals. That's a new thing that they're doing at Wigan in the 2020 season when we restart. But this is just because more people are going to be spending more times in the urinals after coronavirus. So we need to think about those topics of conversations. It's also your time. You what?
Are they going to be playing George Michael in there?
So particularly Go Outside, apparently. I don't know why, but that apparently is a song to do with urinals and George Michael and men, and I'm not too sure why, but maybe you can elaborate on that later on. But I think
Matthew will play it for us all to listen.
I think that is a pretty strong argument, because that moment in the urinals, when something's happened on the pitch but you don't know what it is. I remember Kyle Amor getting sent off against Wigan at Good Friday, and I missed it. And I went through that moment in the urinals. I knew something had happened, and I knew St. Helens had the ball when I went downstairs, but I hadn't got a clue what had happened by the time. And then when I walked up those steps, commotion, you can't make out what's happened, and then that red card brandishes up, and you just realise that you've wasted 25 quid by going having a wee, and you missed the most important part of the game.
Do you know what, Sean? There's a bit all about that in this book here. There's a section all about the best way to go to the urinals during a rugby game. So I like what you've done there.
And it's a shame that book isn't available to be purchased anywhere.
I know. Well, I've still got a few copies left if people need to buy it to find out exactly the best way to go to the urinals during a game.
And are you doing contact-free delivery?
No, I lick it first.
See, and even Ken here, I was in the toilet when Robinson scored at Old Trafford. People remember people remember the moments that they didn't see, perhaps more than the moments that you did see. And
but when it's a televised game, you get the luxury of watching it back. But
don't get started on television.
Everyone coming back to their seats after Liam Marshall scored that try at Huddersfield last month.
That's got to be about.
Is it St. Helens where you urinate opposite someone so you can look into each other's eyes as you...
Old Trafford you do.
I think
it's Old Trafford, that's what it is, yeah.
I think you got lost.
That.
I don't think I've ever had that experience in my life.
No, what was going on there?
But if I knew about it, that would have been in my 5-minute argument. That must have been 5 minutes.
I think it probably was, yeah.
Feels like an hour.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so I'm just going to sit back. You discuss amongst yourselves, tear each other apart. Tell me when you're ready.
Well, I think Matthew's argument kind of supports Mark's argument, which kind of supports my argument. So I think ultimately I'm the winner because all of those are enhanced by if you're in a urinal.
I think all of them are destroyed by the urinal experience. And we were talking about going to games, not just games at the DW. So you have to factor into urinal conversation places like the jungle. And
Yes.
no one wants to go and get soggy feet down the lane, do they? When you're talking about jeopardy, you're not just got jeopardy of missing a important try or an important sending off. You've got jeopardy of catching a serious disease because of the lack of sanitation facilities in that environment.
I mean, let's sort of. I mean, we're sort of all backing my argument here, and there's a comment on there. My wife missed the Joel Tompkins try at Wembley getting drinks.
We're literally all spending as much time and effort as possible to not get diseases, yet you're saying going to Castleford where you'll catch diseases backs up your argument because of the fun factor.
You said jeopardy. Now, what does jeopardy enhances that experience? You go into a rugby game for a spectacle, and there is a bit of jeopardy involved in it, and there's jeopardy involved in rugby league.
Advertise it like that. Come to the rugby game, enjoy the rugby, enjoy the jeopardy in the urinals.
It's why we sell beer, isn't it, to take in your seats, because everyone wants to catch diseases afterwards.
And I think
chance.
Matthew's argument as well lends its support to me, because when that music comes on, you know that you need to hurry your wee up.
You really don't.
So actually what you're saying is the music is important and more important than being in the urinal. Therefore, that enhances Matthew's argument, which was clearly the weakest argument because he just sat there trying to play a song for a minute and a half that we both were able to play. So clearly he should be discounted.
And it's like a 9-minute song as well. He could have just been sat there waiting for it to kick in, and it would have been 7 minutes in. What, Matthew? No, it's like a Max and Paddy sketch. No, we can't hear it now.
Can't you hear it?
I still don't know if you're joking or not.
We can't hear it. I mean, are you on Skype on your laptop as well?
No, I've got it on. I've got YouTube open on my laptop. I've got it playing right now as we're speaking, and then I just played it through Spotify on my phone as well.
Genuinely can't hear a thing. I mean, we know how it goes. And
because you were able to play it, and I was able to play it.
Yeah. And we remember it when it was last played in 2004 as well.
Say again?
I remember the last time it was played in 2004 as well. But that song actually, that to give Matthew a little bit of a lending hand with that song, I do always associate with going to the rugby, and it always gives me fond memories. Particularly
those memories are then spread out with the fact that you remember going with your dad or your family and your schoolmates and people that you might not see that often, Sean, because you're not. Down here, you're up in Durham, and then you travel down for the game. It's the whole experience of catching up with everyone, all of that. Matt comes up on the train to do the same thing,
and then you have an excited wee.
Hold on a minute.
Everything.
We don't want to get too George Michael with excited wees.
Everything filters into my argument. It's like you've just adding to my case that this is the second triple decker, and I'm going to make it 2-0 because it's too easy. Because there is that jeopardy. There is that excitement. There's the anticipation. There's the annoyance of being in a queue as well because you need to get your timings right. See Matt's book.
Social aspect. That's why you meet Josie.
Yeah, absolutely. And
actually, I normally see Josie coming out of the lift. She's one of the people who I might say hi to on a lot of match days. She walks past me and she comes out of the lift. I'm sure that's a vote in my favour as well.
In the urinals.
Mm.
But there you go. So yeah, I think urinals.
Your stick's longer than Sean's stick. I know that.
but there is that added excitement that you hadn't even taken into account, which is enhanced by visiting the urinals.
I genuinely do what I can to not have to go to the toilet during a game. So last season, I watched every single second of every single minute and did not need to go to the toilet during a game once. Not even at the new camp when I was pretty pissed.
See, you need to go to. This is bonkers. This, isn't it? You need to go. You need to experience as many toilets, as many grounds as you can. Like the toilets,
I-
toilets in the new
I
camp.
held off going to the loo at the new camp because I ran into one of my old friends who I hadn't seen for a year or so, who's a London Broncos fan, but made the special trip out for the game. And that was fantastic. And that's so much added to my experience of the game. Whereas the quick dash to the loo was just that, a quick dash to the loo.
Maybe that's where you went
nothing
wrong.
important about it. And I don't even remember the entrance music.
In the urinals, the Cook Islands versus the USA in Bristol,
George Michael.
Tony Ray.
There you go, and you remember that because it was in the urinals.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I once ran into what's his face, the old Warrington guy who used to be on the TV.
Paul
That's
Cullen.
how memorable it was. Yeah, Paul Cullen. Yeah.
In the urinals.
In the urinals at Wakefield, another toilet that you don't really want to be spending too much time in.
And to be honest, London Broncos last year at Ealing Trailfinders were just porta cabins. They were a bit disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all adding to the disappointment side of things. Whereas the most exciting thing about the London Broncos game is my friend Carsten, who lives in Switzerland, flew in just for the game, flew back out, got to catch up with Carsten. These are the memories. These are the great things.
Mm. What's the best toilet? What's the best toilet at the rugby stadium that you've ever been to?
Can't remember.
I don't rank them.
Millennium Stadium.
Which one?
Millennium Stadium.
And why? What was special about them?
It tasted nicer.
I can tell you the worst. I can tell you the worst.
Go on.
Do you remember the toilets at Hilton Park at Lee?
No.
They were at the end of the stand, weren't they, where the away fans stood? And it was just a wall that
What it was like at Knowsley
It was
Road.
almost like like a swirl sort of shape. So you'd walk in all in a line, you'd get in, and it's just the wall continues around in a sort of square shape, and ever decreasing small size, and everyone just stands weeing in a standard gutter that's not even very deep. It was open air. Oh god, that was even worse than Casper.
It probably feeds into somebody's garden.
Yeah. To be fair, the Lee Sports Village is a much better experience.
Knowsley Road used to have toilets like that right next to the away end as well, which was basically a brick wall.
Well, to be fair, the Willows used to just be wee round the back in the car park, did it?
Matt Pryor's just put on worst toilets were the Willows. Featherstone toilets
I
were
don't
dire.
remember ever going in a toilet at the Willows. I only remember weeing against the back of the stand.
I only remember going to the Willows once with my dad. And yeah, I don't remember the toilets there, unfortunately, so I can't add those to my memory collection. But so I think Matt, are we happy to declare that I'm the winner?
To be honest, I want one of you to write a book now about all the different toilets at rugby games.
I think that could be quite interesting to a degree.
Rugby Week.
Rugby Weed. No, that could be a completely different book. And there's a few players that could probably fit in that book as well. But yeah, I
think Sean's won, hasn't he, to be fair to him this time. Somehow maybe you Reynolds doing like...
But if you keep the toilets at the ground and take away the people, where's the atmosphere?
Well, who's saying that atmosphere deserves to win? Everybody spends half the time on there complaining about that there's no atmosphere. There's more atmosphere in the urinals. It's more condensed.
You've got me there.
A thicker atmosphere.
I think that's 2-0, Matt.
Well, hang on. Let me. Just adding up the scores.
Spending time with your dad. Don't forget that.
But spending time with your dad in the urinals.
Dear old dad, just like my time with my uncle, special to me. Your time with your dad.
My dad does spend a lot of time in the urinals when he goes.
Well, I'm screwed then. And we're back to George Michael.
Matthew, you've lost.
Isn't it? If only.
Wait, what? We're going to build up the tension by playing a song. Matt, have you got one lined up?
Yeah, here we go. Should we just?
No. You lost because you said the word razzmatazz, and nobody says that anymore. So your argument was dead in the water as soon as you said that, and that was like the third thing that you said. What's he done?
Is he still playing the music?
Why can you do it, man?
So annoying.
I'm gonna declare Mark the winner.
Ooh.
Simply because it's the urinals, isn't it, Sean? You weirdo.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
And you did try to suggest that we gave you urinals as an option. You chose it yourself.
Is that true?
So Mark wins.
Okay. I mean, I'll take a moral victory for being able to talk 5 minutes about urinals, if that's all right.
That's not a moral
Okay.
victory. It's a moral
Weirdo.
victory if ever there was one.
It's a bit of a weird victory, but I'll take that one. God, Matt, this is bonkers. Right, we've just spent half an hour talking about urinals, 30 seconds about a song that didn't play, and then Mark just had a very solid argument, which we tried to play down. Should we spend sort of 5-10 minutes talking about normal things?
Go on.
Should I
Are
start?
there normal things anymore?
Should I start? Should I take over the steering wheel?
What about what games we've been watching on Wigan TV or anything like that? The old
So
games and
we've
stuff.
got old games. We've got what on earth has everybody been doing in isolation, and then we've got the Jackson Hastings thing and all sorts. But first of all, Matthew, just because I feel so sorry for you, sat in the corner of my screen, baffled at why technology has let you down. Bring us how is running in isolation treating you?
Hard. My life has just been put on hold like everyone else's. I'm used to doing about 20,000 steps a day, and at the moment I'm only doing about 7 or 8, and 5 of those are usually my run. So it's tough, isn't it? Not getting
7
out.
or 8 steps.
Oh, me walking, my steps. It tells me that I've done every day.
I mean that's a big drop, isn't it? From 20,000 steps to 7.
Yeah.
I mean, what's
yeah,
that? Just
five,
walking
5.5
downstairs.
my 5k run. So literally 1,500 is just when I'm talking on the phone, walking up and down. That's it, basically. But yeah, it's tough, but we keep going, don't we? We all keep going. What about you guys? Are you guys still at work, or are you isolated at home?
Isolated at home, but working.
Yeah, I'm working from home.
So here's a good question for you. How productive do you think you are when you're at home compared to when you are in the workplace? More or less, or the same?
About the same. It's just weird getting into a routine. You've got to nail that routine. I think it takes a bit of time to get into it, but I think once you nail that, I mean, Mark just said before we came on the show that he's working, but he starts drinking at about 11 a.m.
I found a 2.8% beer. That's just fantastic.
So instead of a tea break, he's having a lager break now.
No, I agree with Sean that the routine thing's tricky, and the thing that's getting in the way of me being more efficient and more productive is all the bloody conference calls that I have to have with people to talk about what we're going to do rather than actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So once I guess we're all used to working from home, that I probably will be slightly more efficient. But I'm slightly lucky in that my wife's working from home as well, so we get to sort of go and have some brew breaks, and I still have some human interaction, which is nice in the working day.
And Matt, you're in and out of school?
Yeah, I'm on a rota. So I think I'm in next Wednesday is the next time I'm in. But I'm in touch with lots of kids on email and setting work and that sort of thing.
We need to clarify that you're a teacher, and if somebody just watched that last 10 seconds of the show, then
we won't tell them what he teaches because then it makes it more confusing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's leave that.
How many kids are going in your school, Matt? Actually going into classes? Because I've heard that the numbers are so low that it's kind of really hard to kind of get any teaching routine in because you've got like 2 kids from year 11, 2 kids from year 7, that sort of randomness.
The first day it was about 18. And it's dropped. I think it's about 8 to 10 now.
Wow.
So it's babysitting rather than teaching.
It just feels like the big TV on the wheels is getting rolled out into the hall a lot.
With the VHS locks in.
Yeah. all chained over on the back.
Let's move on to something rugby related, because Stu is in the comments threatening to give us some gardening tips. So let's move on to prevent Stu from remotely talking about gardening. No, don't encourage it. Just no. Matt, you mentioned about sort of games that we're watching on Wigan TV. If you were to pick one game, and this is tricky, if you were to pick one game that you had to watch from start to finish for 80 minutes that you would get the most joy out of watching, what would it be? Matt, start with you.
Me? I don't know. It'd probably be quite an old one. Probably maybe Wigan and Hull at Wembley in, was it 84 or 85?
85. I think a lot of people would pick that, wouldn't they? I think a lot of people would pick that as sort of the greatest Challenge Cup final that's ever been, and there's always.
I think it's going to be shown. Parts of that are going to be shown on the BBC in the show that they're doing on Saturday afternoon. 5 greatest finals or something. That's definitely one of them.
It does always seem to be the final that people go back to, particularly over, obviously when we played Hull a couple of years ago at Wembley, it seemed to sort of evoke a lot of memories of that, and there's a lot of clips shown of that as well. Mark, if you were to watch one, I've got an idea what you're going to pick in my head, so I'll see whether you pick the one.
It's one I've talked about. It's the 2010 Grand Final, because that's the first. That was the first Grand Final that we'd won for such a long time, and I wasn't a season ticket holder. I wasn't a regular fan. I wasn't that sort of involved in the club from when I was born in '85 through to sort of the move to the new stadium. It was kind of when I started getting a season ticket, not just circumstance or whatever. That's when I got into the sport. But to go without a Grand Final win since '98, which I was at, and to become an obsessive rather than an occasional fan in that time, and us not win any Grand Finals, I think that's the most special for me. Yeah, and I have watched it since the self-isolation period began.
Matthew, if you were to pick one, now I've got an idea what you would pick, and I think it would be the semi-final from last year when Salford beat Wigan.
Oh no!
But if you were to pick one where Wigan won, what would you pick?
Oh well, I didn't know it had to be an actual Wigan game then, because
no, it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. Go on.
I was going to say England versus Tonga in the World Cup semi-final. That one, for me, that was the best sporting thing I've ever seen in that second half, with the crowd was singing. It was in Auckland, that wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. That was just bigger than sport, that wasn't it? How they were singing hymns, and then Tonga obviously nearly made an incredible comeback after that as well, and they were doing that when they thought we're going to lose, but we're just happy and celebrating, and the ending of that was just amazing, that comeback that they did. And really, we were really lucky with that decision, weren't we? Because it should have been a try, and they should have won the game, in my opinion. But
loose carry, great tackle, loose carry. End of debate.
We've got some.
Why are you obsessed with wanting the team you support to lose, man?
It was fantastic to watch, wasn't it?
The Tongan runner, did you not know? We've got Brisbane versus Wigan in the World Club Challenge when Wigan won in Brisbane. We've got Wigan versus St Helens when Wigan stuffed them 27-0 in the Challenge Cup. We've got another one for the 2010 Grand Final. Mine is a strange one, surprisingly, just because I want to be an oddball. But I watched it the other day, and I've never managed to find the full game yet. I've only watched the highlights on YouTube. It's the 2011 Challenge Cup semi-final at Warrington, and it was Wigan versus St Helens. And I think Wigan ended up winning 18-12. I think we went maybe 18-0 up or 18-2 up, and then St Helens had a bit of a comeback towards the end. But at the time, that for me was when Wigan, under that period with Maguire, that's when Wigan were at the best. I think they were better in 2011 than they were in 2010. Perhaps controversially, but we had Finch and Hoffman and Lima in the team then as well. And I think St Helens, when you look at it on paper, actually still quite a decent team at that point. They still had the likes of Leon Price knocking around, and they had Johnny Lomax coming through the system. But that was played at Warrington, and I remember going to that with my dad, and then knowing that we'd won the game, but that I wouldn't be able to go to Wembley because I had already booked on a holiday. So it was a weird emotion at the end of the game. I was delighted that we'd got to Wembley for the first time at the new stadium, but gutted that I couldn't be there. But I just remember that round about that period in sort of that July time was when I felt when we'd hit our peak And I just remember Charlie scoring a ridiculous try.
Charlie and Tompkins tore him apart, didn't they, in the sort of back end of that first half?
Yeah.
And we sort of thought the second half would be academic, and it wasn't quite.
I missed that out in the urinals.
Well, one of the try that was just after the ridiculous quarter-final against Warrington as well, where we went into a massive lead against Warrington, then they came back a little bit, and again Charlie scored that try from in his own where he started the break from in his own half, and it just felt like that for me was the peak of Maguire's powers, and sort of showed what we were really capable of. But that's the game that I would go to. There's lots of
Saints got to the grand final that year, didn't they? There were no mugs.
Absolutely, they knocked us out, didn't they, in the semi-final?
It was their fifth loss in a row, weren't it? That was the 5 years in a row, weren't it? That was the fifth one.
And then after the defeat, Wigan lost, because that's when Saints were playing the home games at Widnes, weren't they? And we lost at Widnes against Saints.
Oh, Jamie Foster, how shit was he to be the player that did us in those games at the end of the season?
And then there's that brilliant photograph of Michael. That was Michael Maguire's last game. There's that brilliant photograph of Michael Maguire absolutely hammered in a kebab shop on King Street. If you've not seen it, find it. It is the perfect way to end your Wigan career. So yeah, good selection there. I like the Tonga selection that was shown on our league app last week, wasn't it? They showed that game in full. We're going to get sick of it after a while, aren't we?
I watched a couple of the the Good Friday games, the away ones against Saints from the last few years that they put on Wigan, they sort of played up through Wigan TV. The one where Don Manfredi had about 1 million tackle busts was a good one, and it always feels like since they moved to that new stadium, all the Good Friday games away are always the sunny games, so they're always the drinking days, aren't they? So they're always. I always remember them much more fondly than the wet days at Wigan, even though we've won plenty at both.
The 2016 one, which was when we were playing in the blue and white hoops. That was my stag do. That started my stag do at Langtree Park, and then we went to Dublin afterwards. But that was I think I had a good time, and it's really good that it was a game on video so that I could watch it back. Let's talk about one last thing before we sort of end this bonkers show. The Jackson Hastings sort of Jackson Hastings himself, he just doesn't go away from the news, does he? Last week there was the interview that he did. Was it on Fox Sport, Mark, in Australia, where he was asked a question about moving to NRL. He answered it honestly, truthfully, and I think said something that we already all kind of knew, that he would go back to the NRL. But just interested to get people's thoughts on that, and particularly there's that rumour that I think is just perhaps soft journalism, if that's the way to describe it, of linking Sean Long at Harlequins to signing Jackson Hastings because he once said that he wouldn't mind playing rugby union, and Sean Long knows about rugby league. It seems a bizarre sort of connection, particularly after the Gloucester one. But Matt, your thoughts on Jackson Hastings and his whole sort of approach to it?
I don't think he's done anything wrong, has he? He's been candid. He's been honest. He's said, like you say, what we all know anyway. We might have him for one season. We might have him for 2 seasons, but we'll enjoy him while we have him. At this rate, we might never see him play again.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, I sort of put a tweet on, and it's my phone's never been as hot as it was that day about that, and just try pretty much what you said about supporting it, because for me, it's not new news that he's not going to be here forever, and I don't really want to get upset about him not being here forever, because we kind of knew the rules when he came in. Like you've said, it might be 1 year, it might be 2 years. Matthew, your thoughts on a player that's currently contracted to Wigan talking in an interview that if the opportunity arose, he wouldn't mind moving club?
Well, first thing is, he was just honest, wasn't he? I've seen that interview, and he was talking about how it changed his life around recently as well, since he'd been at Salford and he reinvented himself. So all credit to him, and let's be honest, for a player in their career, for a lot of them, the NRL is seen as the peak, isn't it? So you can't blame him, especially when it's where he's from. So if he wants to go back there eventually, so be it. But why he's a Wigan player, as long as he does his best, That's the important thing. And one thing that's definite that actually has happened, I don't know if you guys saw it this week on Instagram. He threw a rugby ball in a cul-de-sac, presumably where he lives. Did you see that where he threw the ball into the bin? You're probably talking about 30 yards, maybe 30 yards away it was, and he got it into a bin. Obviously, that big. And then he
How
was
small are
throwing
your
another-
bins?
he was throwing another ball straight after, and he did it again. So he did two, one after the other, which was phenomenal. It's the sort of thing where if that was like Ronaldo or someone like in football did that with a football, it'd be all over YouTube and everyone would be talking about it. But it was incredible. And he just did it.
You want to see Josh Griffin's teabag skills?
Whoa.
You want to be impressed, but.
Go on, Mark. Your thoughts on it?
I get why people are annoyed when you sort of see that it came off the back of arguably his worst performance against his former team, and the way the interview kind of came across was like almost like he was seeking out the right club. He didn't say that, but that was the way it was put across. And then the fact that it was clipped down, sensationalized. I can get why people are annoyed. It's a crap time for most of us, isn't it? So most of us feel a bit uncertain and stuff. And when something we want to love so much, it gets taken away from us before we've really got to benefit from it. I get why people are upset, but for me, I'm similar to you guys in my own personal opinion of it. I mean, part of the reason I think why Jackson Hastings came to us over maybe what I've heard versus maybe Leeds Rhinos before they then signed Gale was that we were willing to put the NRL release clause into his contract, which the Leeds Rhinos weren't. So, we all know that release clause is in there. It's never been hidden by Jackson, by the club, by anyone. He's always talked about wanting to make the right moves for himself now, going to the right places to better himself, better his career, and those sorts of things. He seems to have his head screwed on these days, and I think he's an emotional kid as well. I think he is an emotional kid, and his mum's certainly an emotional lady, and I just think the best way to get the best out of Jackson Hastings is to back him whilst we've got him. No one was people turning around and slagging Ryan Sutton off when he said, I don't want to stay at Wigan after this contract. I want to go to the NRL because it's the best competition. We weren't, were we? So I don't get why we're doing it with another player who, from what I can see, is putting his heart into playing for Wigan whilst he's at Wigan. So, the one thing I think he needs to think about, though, is Jackson is he'll regret leaving our competition without having won a trophy. And so this year, the chances of actually getting to play at a trophy are looking reduced all the time. So I think Jackson might want to sit back and think about what he wants to have as his legacy. And surely winning trophies is part of that for himself. And staying at Wigan for the duration of his contract might actually give him more chances of realising a wider element of his legacy than just getting to play in the NRL again and maybe being ditched again by a club. You never know because it's cutthroat over there compared to over here.
I think there's a couple of things to add to that as well is perhaps the context of when it happened and the timing of it. The night before he put Bevan French has gone back over to Australia, and that sort of slips under the radar a little bit. And I think if Jackson Hastings had gone back to Australia to see his family, we would be talking about that a lot more than the fact that Bevan French is there. He's gone to see his family and spend time over there, and it feels like that's being dealt with in perhaps the way that it should have been dealt with. In that nobody's talking about it because it's none of our business. The fact that it's Jackson Hastings, we want to talk about it because that's the character that he is and perhaps the reputation that he's brought over for himself from Australia. But the night before this interview, he put on Instagram and Twitter about, does anybody know about getting a flight over to Australia? He was clearly in a position where he was extremely homesick at that point and wanted to strongly consider going over to Australia to spend lockdown over there with his family. The other thing that I think we've got to consider in this as well is we assume that this NRL clause does have a cut-off date. I think we're pretty clear on that. Nobody knows when that date is apart from the people involved in that contract. The longer this goes on without any games, why would an NRL club sign a player now for next season when they've not even given the current signings an opportunity? How do Canberra know that George Williams is going to be the player that they expect him to be after 2 games in the NRL? If that clause in the contract is the 1st of May, there's not going to be any games before the 1st of May, and that may be when his contract expires. So if he's trying to put himself in the shop window, and all what he can do at the moment is talk about it,
and throw things into bins.
And throw things into bins, which has clearly impressed Matthew. It didn't impress me that much, but it's impressed you, so it worked. But he's got a limited opportunity until that clause expires. I think that's a real, probably a concern, because clubs might, apart from Tyrone Frizzell, who's already sort of agreed his deal for next year, nobody's really thinking about signings for next year, because this year hasn't even started, and there's obviously a time date in that clause, in that contract, which will expire in Wigan's favour. So, the longer this goes on, the more likely Jackson Hastings, I think, will be a Wigan player in 2021. I think if he wanted to move, somebody would pay money for him at a discount, and Wigan would let him go if he was clearly homesick. But it feels strange, and I think it's only because it's Jackson Hastings. I think if this was Bevan French, nobody would be talking about it. And obviously, if Hastings goes, we can obviously play Bevan French at halfback.
Shut up, Phil.
So that's but yeah, it's strange times. Next week we'll think of something, probably a double decker, and just downscale it a little bit. But hopefully something has happened next week. Probably hasn't, and we'll try and find something else to talk about. But Matt, thank you for being in control of the vehicle. Matthew, thank you for being utterly rubbish with technology. It was a delight to watch and be a part of. And Mark, thank you for taking part, because I know you're about to drop out, but thank you for persevering.
Oh, I was going to get the song back up for Matthew.
Do you want to play us out with the song?
I'll try. I can't make any promises. Hold on. No, it's not here.
Okay.
Well, playing something else.
Well, Matthew, you'll have to just put the YouTube link onto your page, and then everybody can kind of see your argument. Or listen to your argument at least. Everybody, thank you for watching us. Playing us out is Mark with his phone of Conquest of Paradise, and hopefully we'll see everybody next week. And keep safe, everybody.
Yeah.